The scars of World War II didn't stop bleeding in 1945. They leaked into deserts, oil fields, and iron-fisted regimes decades later. And one of the clearest examples is Muammar Gaddafi. A man born into the aftermath of a shattered empire, raised on resentment, revolution, and unfinished wars. This isn't just the story of a Libyan strongman. This is the story of how World War II planted seeds that grew into chaos, power, and collapse. Stay with me, because this legacy is darker, deeper, and more relevant than most history books ever admit. Born from the wreckage of empire, Gaddafi entered the world in 1942, while World War II was tearing North Africa apart. Tanks rolled across deserts, bombers screamed overhead. European powers turned Libya into a battlefield, not a homeland. Italy had colonized Libya before the war, and when World War II arrived, Libya became a chessboard for foreign armies. By the time the guns fell silent, the country was scarred poor and politically hollow. That mattered. Gaddafi grew up surrounded by the consequences of World War II without ever seeing its victory parades. He saw broken authority, foreign humiliation, and a nation that felt used and discarded. For young minds like his, World War II wasn't a finished chapter. It was, well, a personal insult. World War II rewrote global power. Europe weakened. Old empires cracked. New superpowers rose. Gaddafi absorbed that lesson early. He believed the post-World War II order was rigged, designed to keep smaller nations dependent and obedient. To him, Western influence in Libya wasn't progress. It was the unfinished business of conquest. Oil discoveries in the 1950s only deepened this anger. Libya suddenly mattered again, but not to its own people. Foreign companies arrived fast. Money flowed out faster. Gaddafi saw this as World War II exploitation wearing a business suit. That resentment became fuel, not ideology. Fuel. The coup that echoed a global war. In 1969, Gaddafi seized power without firing a single shot. The monarchy collapsed overnight. This wasn't random. World War II had already taught ambitious men that old systems could fall quickly when legitimacy vanished. Gaddafi believed history rewarded those bold enough to strike at the right moment. Once in control, he moved fast. Foreign military bases were shut down. Western oil interests were forced to renegotiate. He framed everything as liberation from a post-World War II colonial hangover. To many Libyans, it felt like justice finally arriving late. To the West, it felt like trouble. A dictator shaped by war psychology. World War II normalized extreme thinking. Total victory, total defeat. No middle ground. Gaddafi ruled the same way. Compromise looked like weakness. Opposition looked like betrayal. He built a state where loyalty mattered more than institutions, and fear replaced law. He rewrote Libya's identity around constant struggle. Enemies were always nearby. Threats were always coming. This mindset, really mirrors how nations behaved during World War II, when survival justified everything. Gaddafi, well, he never left that mental battlefield. Even his infamous speeches, they followed war logic, long, aggressive, absolutist. He spoke as if every disagreement was an invasion. World War II taught another lesson. Wars don't stay contained. Gaddafi acted on that belief. He funded militant groups, interfered in neighbouring states, and positioned himself as a global disruptor. Not because he loved chaos, but because he believed stability favoured the powerful nations that won World War II. By keeping the world unsettled, he thought smaller states could breathe. This strategy backfired. Sanctions followed, isolation grew, Libya became a pariah. And yet Gaddafi didn't retreat. War-era thinking doesn't retreat. It doubles down. By the time the Arab Spring reached Libya in 2011, Gaddafi was still fighting a war that began before he was born. Protesters weren't just demanding reforms. They were rejecting decades of fear, stagnation, and permanent emergency rule. The irony is brutal. Gaddafi claimed to free Libya from the shadow of World War II, yet he ruled it like the war never ended. When his regime collapsed, it didn't collapse cleanly. It shattered. Just like post-World War II states that lacked strong foundations. Libya descended into fragmentation, militias and uncertainty. Another reminder that unresolved historical trauma doesn't disappear. It mutates. This isn't ancient history. World War II continues to shape modern conflicts through leaders who, inherited its unfinished business. Gaddafi is a warning. When nations are born from war ruins without healing, power often fills the vacuum before stability does. His story shows how World War II wasn't just a war of armies. It was, a factory for mindsets, suspicion, militarism, zero-sum thinking. These traits didn't die in 1945. They found new hosts. The scar that never healed. Muammar Gaddafi wasn't an accident. He was a product. A man shaped by a world still staggering after World War II. His rise, rule and fall remind us that history doesn't move on just because calendars do. It drags its scars forward, waiting for the next generation to either heal them or repeat them. And, that's the real lesson for us today. If this deep dive helped you see global history differently, subscribe to The Scars of a Global Stormfronts for more stories that connect past wars to present chaos. Share this video with anyone who thinks history is finished. It isn't. It's still talking.